This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want is a great feeling. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can choose to bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
A science story, huh?
These NYU scientists,
I felt
right.
I was so
And I just thought,
happy.
well,
I had figured it out.
It was that golden moment.
Because science was on my side.
Hey everyone, welcome to The Story Clatter, where true personal stories about science help us to discover how weird and wonderful it is to exist in this world and be a human. I'm your host, Misha Gajewski, and today's episode is all about hyperfixations. For the uninitiated, a hyperfixation is something incredibly specific and sometimes strange that you become obsessed with. And we're not talking just something you like a lot, like a hobby. These hyperfixations are all-consuming. Our first story is from Obie and Drama Desk Award-winning performer Jenna Dioguardi. Her story was recorded at our go-to spot in New York, Caveat, and Jenna's story opened my eyes to a body part I spent almost no time thinking about: nipples. So, thanks, Jenna. But nipple self-consciousness aside, this story is so funny and just the right amount of strange. You're gonna love it. Here's Jenna.
This is about 3 years ago. It's a Thursday afternoon, around 4 p.m. I'm sitting at my desk, and my phone rings. And it is, I just forgot her name because I was thinking about Stanley Tucci. It's a woman named Amanda. And Amanda is this very gentle Irish nurse at Cedars-Sinai. And I pick up, and Amanda says, "Hi, Miss Dioguardi, are you alone right now?" And I am. And she says, okay, I am just calling because we got the results back from your biopsy, and it did come back as a cancer. And I'll never forget the way she said it. She said, a cancer, right? Not just cancer, but a cancer. She also said it in a very thick Irish accent that I'll spare you this evening. Amanda says, "I'm so sorry, Jenna." And I don't say anything yet because I can't, but I'm just sitting with my legs tucked up onto my swivel chair and my phone is resting on my knees. And Amanda tells me that I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to die from this. And she says, "It'll be a shit year, but you will get through it." And that really comforts me, actually, because I love when doctors curse. When we get off the phone, any sort of physical movement feels very dangerous, right? So I just take one really slow step at a time into my bathroom, and I look in the mirror and I lift up my shirt and I look at my breasts to see if they look any different now that I know that there's cancer in there. And they don't. But right away, I do know that I won't have these breasts for much longer. And it's a very easy decision for me, actually. I'm an all or nothing type of girl, so I'm either going to have breasts that have cancer in them or I'm not going to have any breasts at all. No risks in the in-between. And also, my mom had bilateral mastectomies 20 years ago, and it saved her life. And my mom, by the way, we are very, very, very close. We talk almost every day, but she is not the first person that I tell. I have to kind of work my way up to that conversation. But after a few other phone calls to friends, I do call her and we do cry together for a few minutes. But it is not very long before I shift right into game plan mode. And I start making a to-do list, right? And the second step on that to-do list is have bilateral mastectomies. And the first step on that to-do list is get diagnosed with breast cancer, because I like to start a to-do list off with something that I've done already, just to sort of get the momentum going, cross that off, write down a bunch of other steps, and I get to the final step. I write, get new nipples. And I have had cancer for roughly 45 minutes when I make this to-do list. But now it's just another list in my life. The to-do list of it all makes the cancer feel very contained and like something that I can conquer with a nice, clean slate on the other side of it. So I look at this list and right away I get really, really attached to the idea of this new life that I'll have once my to-do list is complete, right? A life that is worry-free and where nothing really could possibly scare me, because look at that, I did cancer. So it's May when I get diagnosed and make this list, and if my calculations are correct, it looks like I can wrap this whole thing up by December. So people start asking me, how long is your treatment going to be? And I say, well, I'm getting nipples for Christmas, and then I'm going to be done. So over the next couple of months, I cross each step off the list. I have bilateral mastectomies. I freeze my eggs. I start my treatment, and I make it to my breast reconstruction surgery. And once I heal from this, the next step is get new nipples. So I am starting to see the finish line. Now, the man who is in charge of reconstructing my breasts and then the nipples that will adorn them is my plastic surgeon. And I have to see him several times over these many months. And with each visit, I'm less and less impressed by him. I find him to have the emotional intelligence of a worm. But he is the chair of the department at Memorial Sloan Kettering. And according to his colleagues, the quote, Michelangelo of breast reconstruction. So I put up with him, understanding that I will come out of this experience with truly legendary breasts. So I get to September, I have my breast reconstruction surgery, and I do come out of it with truly lopsided breasts. One of them, that's my partner, by the way. One of my breasts sits a couple of inches higher than the other one. And it looks weird, and it hurts. So at my post-op appointment, I say to the doctor, I say, looks are one thing, but I'm actually in pretty regular pain. Is there anything that we can do about this? And Michelangelo himself takes a step back and looks at his work and just says, your chest cavity is crooked. There's nothing more that I can do. And he leaves the room. I'm insulted and I'm disappointed. These are my legendary lopsided breasts, and I'm just supposed to live with them. And Sherelle, who is Michelangelo's nurse and saving grace, she very kindly says to me, Jenna, there's always the option of a revision surgery if you're unhappy with your results. And I appreciate that, but I really can't accept it because I come from a very long line of deeply impatient people, and those genetics combined with my desire to just get my nipples for Christmas and step into my new life, that all comes together and it overrides my pain and my disappointment, and somehow I wind up convincing myself that it's fine. I'm fine. Really, it's okay. Look, Jenna, you had cancer and you're not dead. It's actually amazing. Maybe you're going to have lopsided breasts that tug at your skin and hurt when you breathe for the rest of your life. But hey, you should really be grateful. You should be grateful. So I just say to Sherelle, thank you, but I just want to keep moving forward and let's move on with the nipple reconstruction surgery. And Sherelle asks me if I know what kind of nipples I want to get. And I know what you're thinking, but fun shapes are not on the menu. Okay, you can't get like lightning bolt nipples or nipples in the shape of your childhood dog. Believe me, if you could, I would have them. The type of nipples that I want are made from a skin graft so that the nipple itself will be three-dimensional. So I finished this conversation with Sherelle and I march right up to the scheduling desk, and the whole way I'm like, nipples for Christmas, nipples for Christmas, nipples for Christmas. And I get up there And as it turns out, there's a whole long line of women ahead of me awaiting their new nipples too. And the soonest I can get mine is March. So it's going to be nipples for Mardi Gras, which is less catchy, but it is more thematically suitable. But this really is a blow to my carefully written out to-do list and plan. And I double check with the receptionist. I say, there is no availability before the end of the year. And she says, no, but I can put you on a wait list in case any earlier openings pop up. I call this office every day for weeks to check on the status of this wait list until somebody suggests that my therapist step in, and she suggests I explore a meditation practice instead. With the wholehearted support of my family and friends, I do, and I actually get really, really into it, and I meditate my way all the way through Christmas and through the end of the year and through my original deadline, right up to my nipples for Mardi Gras. The time has finally come. I go back and see Michelangelo, and he takes a good amount of skin from my groin area, and he makes me a new set of nipples out of it. And I set off into my long-awaited post-cancer sunset. And I make it 2 weeks into this sunset before I start having headaches. Really, really bad ones. And my first thought is the nipples. They're too powerful. But my second thought is brain cancer. And it's all I can think. And so I start knocking on wood anytime I even think the words brain cancer. And I also knock on wood anytime one of those metastatic breast cancer commercial comes on, and I stop eating meat and I stop eating sugar, and I up my meditation practice to any time I have so much as a tickle in my throat, and I get every test I can possibly get for every mysterious lump and bump and crick in my neck, and all of these tests every time yield the same result. There's nothing to worry about, Jenna. You're fine. But I really just can't take that in. I can't get myself to believe that, because even though this is supposed to be the start of my new nothing scares me because I survived cancer life, actually everything scares me because I survived cancer. Every single ingrown hair or backache in the morning or dizzy spell from standing up too fast, all of it scares me, and it's not going away. I am experiencing remission a lot less as post-cancer, this glory that I thought it would be, and a lot more as remember, that could happen again. I don't really have a post-cancer. It doesn't really exist for me. Kind of like my nipples don't really exist. They're a facade. They're made out of skin from my groin. By the way, Christmas, also a facade. Unless you want to get really religious about it. There's no way that my nipples ever could possibly bear this responsibility of closing this chapter for me, because it doesn't really look like the chapter is closing. But I'm thinking that maybe my nipples, what they can do instead is they can be a reminder that I did something really hard and that it's okay to be scared. And if I do have to do it again, my nipples are just proof that I can. Thank you.
That was Jenna. To learn more about her, visit our website, storyclatter.org. Being a storyteller on stage is just one way to make storyclatter happen, but if standing alone in a spotlight in front of an audience doesn't speak to you, maybe becoming a storyclatter donor might be more your speed. Right now, the voices of scientists and science communicators need to be heard more than ever. At Storyclatter, we believe that personal stories can cut through the noise, connecting people to the human side of science, building trust, and making complex issues real. But we can't do this work without you. If you believe in the power these stories have and this mission, please donate to the Story Clatter at storyclatter.org/donate. The most popular level is $10 a month, and you can make your tax-deductible donation at storyclatter.org/donate. But really, any level makes a difference, and we're so grateful to everyone who supports Story Clatter. Hey Story Clatter listeners, as you probably guessed, I spend a lot of time at home, working, writing, even recording this podcast. And while my furnace air filter can keep out some nasty stuff, I realized the air in my house was kinda meh. Not terrible, just not great. You know that feeling? So I got an air doctor, and wow, within days my place felt like I had just cracked open a window in the mountains. This delightful air purifier quietly removes 99.99% of contaminants. Things like mold spores, smoke, even viruses, and you honestly feel the difference. It's not shocking, Newsweek named it the best air purifier, and 98% of customers say they noticed their air felt cleaner and safer. Plus, with a cat and tons of construction happening around me, I love that Air Doctor's technology is next level, capturing the tiniest particles that most filters miss. So, if you want your home to feel like a breath of fresh air, literally, I have some great news. Right now, Story Clatter listeners can get up to $300 off an Air Doctor air purifier. Just go to airdoctorpro.com, that's AIRDOCTORPRO.com, and use promo code COLLIDER, COLLIDER, at checkout. Hey folks, so I've been trying to build healthier habits this year. More sleep, more veggies, working out, and yeah, drinking more water. But I hate tap water, or at least I did until I started using AquaTrue. Their purifiers make it so easy to stay hydrated with clean, safe, amazing tasting water. It uses reverse osmosis technology to remove all the junk. You know, those forever chemicals like PFAS, as well as fluoride, chlorine, even microplastics. And the best part, it's actually made a difference in my day-to-day. I'm drinking more water without even thinking about it. Another bonus is my tea and coffee taste better, and even my cat started drinking more water because, of course, the cat drinks AquaTrue now too. And my favorite thing about AquaTrue is that the filters last 6 months to 2 years, so you're not stuck replacing them constantly. Truly delightful. Want to try it for yourself? Well, great news. Right now, Story Collider listeners get 20% off any AquaTrue purifier. Just go to aquatrue.com, that's AQUATRU.com, and use promo code COLLIDER at checkout. That's 20% off any AquaTrue water purifier when you go to aquatrue.com and use promo code COLLIDER. Our next story is from Luke Strathmann, a writer and comedian who currently leads the communications team at Yale's Department of Economics. His story is all about Beanie Babies. I know. Haven't heard those words in a while, but yes, Beanie Babies. And look, if you're not a millennial, you might not remember the hype around Beanie Babies, but it was a wild time. Seriously, just Google it. Luke's story might be the strangest economic cautionary tale about getting swept up in a popular trend I've ever heard. But it's such a great story, and I can't wait for you to relive the Beanie Baby craze. Here's Luke.
So my name is Luke, and I grew up on a donkey farm. And for the most part, my best friend was a goat. His name was Webster. My little brother's in the back. He knows Webster. And this is a fourth-generation family farm. So my grandma lived on the farm with us, and she was a florist, and she would deliver flowers every weekend. And I would go with her on these flower deliveries, and we'd go all over Pennsylvania and the Philadelphia area. And every now and then, she would pick up supplies for her flower deliveries. And one day, she bought me a little stuffed animal goat named Goatee. And this was my very first Beanie Baby. And so it was just me and Webster and Goatee, and we were just hanging out in the goat pen together. That was the friend group. And what we like to do, what I like to do with the goats was we'd turn the hay bales, the bales of hay over, and then we'd have the goats battle each other on them and try to knock each other off. And then me and Goatee, the Beanie Baby, would be the refs of these battles. And we decide who would win, and we always made sure that Webster won, and that's how I earned loyalty from Webster. And so my grandma, she noticed that like how much fun I was having with this little like beanie animal, like with this little imaginative world up in the goat pen. And so she bought me a few more of these things, and suddenly I had this like little Beanie Baby collection. And then one day I realized I was sitting on a gold mine. And that's not because goat milk took off in Brooklyn, but that certainly helped my family's finances. But it was because these little beanies that like my grandma bought for $5 at a local store suddenly were worth like thousands of dollars to some people. And there was a Princess Diana Beanie Baby, this purple little Beanie Baby that sold on eBay for $900,000 at one point. And so I found this out and suddenly like wanted to become a Beanie Baby tycoon, and like I made Beanie Babies like my whole personality, and I made it my whole agenda to like get rich off these Beanie Babies. And it just became kind of like an obsession and part of my identity. And then like, cause I don't know. And then as some of you might know, like the Beanie Baby market kind of crashed spectacularly, like the bubble burst at some point. And like I had made my whole identity, like I wanted to be this Beanie Baby tycoon. I thought I was going to be on the cover of Forbes magazine as like the world's richest middle schooler, but like now I was a candidate to be on like Sad Emo Teen magazine. Like that would have been better. And this moment or like this period or era of my life like did put me on this crazy trajectory where like I wanted to figure out what happened. And I went off to college and I studied economics. And I like tried to figure out like the dismal science, we'll say, because this is a science science event, and tried to like figure out like how do people get rich? Like why are things valued the way they are? And I've like spent most of my life working in economics departments, which upon reflection has honestly been like not entirely what I'm passionate about or what I want to be doing. And that's been an interesting realization for me, is that like I've spent most of my life working somewhere that hasn't really brought me a lot of joy, and I blame Beanie Babies or capitalism, I don't know, but I want to focus on Beanie Babies. Do you all like know this craze at all? Okay, cool. So they started out as these like little playthings. They were toys. They were like the main buyers were grandmas and children. And then all of a sudden this fad took off, and there were like lines and lines of like creepy belligerent men that were like dying to get their hands on a little stuffed animal so they could resell it at a mall. And then I, as an 11-year-old, was like, I want that. I want to be a creepy belligerent man selling things at a mall. And I remember the turning point too. Like I was at this school where our mom worked, a little friend's school, and I brought a Beanie Baby to school, and there was a new kid named Adam, and he looked at the Beanie Baby and he was like, "Man, that thing is worth like so much money. What are you doing with that in school? You need to put a tag protector on that. You need to put it in a glass case. Like you cannot bring that thing in the goat pen anymore." And he was right. Like I shouldn't have, like I know from an economic perspective. And so I like became obsessed with the idea of like building this Beanie Baby empire, and I did everything to do that. And so I like growing up on the farm, we had this like chore chart system. You remember this? It was, you open the snack cabinet, and there was like a hand-drawn thing, and it had like all the farm chores on it, and it was tied to like a mini allowance. And so like if you took like to take the trash out to the main road, like we were kind of far from that was like a nickel or a dime or something. And then to put the chicken feed out, that was like 25 cents or something. But the activity that paid the most money, like I'm talking dollars, was shoveling donkey poop. And so I decided that I was going to spend like my whole weekends shoveling donkey poop, and trying to build up like $7 or $11 or something. And then I'd beg my grandma to like take me around to all the Hallmark stores in the area. And I had like memorized like the numbers of the Hallmark stores so I could call them about the shipments. Like 353-1235 is our local one. Add the area code 610-353-1235. You can call the Newtown Square Hallmark today. That is their, I think Linda's still working there. She's still slinging beanies. Like you can call them. And that's what I would do. And I like had their shipment times memorized. Like at 9:59 on Saturday morning, I would get in from shoveling donkey poop, and like while my friends or like my brother or whoever, or not really my friends, the other kids, but were watching watching cartoons and playing soccer or something, I was like at the kitchen table with those big yellow phone books, looking at the business section of Hallmark and being like calling them, and I'd be like, Linda, did the UPS truck arrive on time today? And do you have the new Flippy? Or do you have the new Quackers? And like Flippy was a cat, and Quackers was a duck, in case you were wondering. And this was, and like that guy, and me and that guy Adam actually started a business together, which we called Luke and Adam's Beanies and Cards, LABC. For short. And we had like a GeoCities site. We sold these things on eBay. We were like little capitalist freaks. And it actually like it turned into like a real friendship too. Like that ended up being like my first real friend, I think, like in 5th grade. And we would like spend days after school making like hand-drawn spreadsheets. And like tracking all the deals and putting all the finances there, like what deals went well and what deals didn't go well. And we were interviewed on local news at one point as like a little 11-year-old's like local business success story. And like by our own accounting metrics, again, we were millionaires. And my parents like supported this delusion in part, and they still talk about this because they thought that I was gonna like put myself through college on this. And plus, like, they were getting a lot of donkey poop shoveled. Like during the Beanie Baby craze, I think we had the cleanest donkey poop, like the cleanest donkey pen in the world. And then, as we already know, like the world came kind of crashing down spectacularly. Like it was like a stuffed animal apocalypse. I looked this up. There was $20 billion of wealth like evaporated in like a span of a month or two, which is obviously like a very comprehensible number for an 11-year-old. And I like this this left me pretty like lost and pretty devastated. Like I don't know. I'd like my whole like identity fell apart. My whole like initiative as like an 11-year-old fell apart. Like my friendship with Adam kind of fell apart. Like we had this whole thing that we did together every day, and then all of a sudden like we weren't hanging out anymore because we didn't have a business, and kind of like the lure of these Beanie Babies kind of fell off. And it did leave me with this kind of like sinking question that put me on it of like, what gives things value, or like, how as an 11-year-old did I get swindled by global economic forces? And it did. It like put me on a track to kind of like figure out like, why do people spend all this money on things that like arguably don't do anything, right? Like Beanie Babies, like this Beanie Baby or the version of this cost $900,000 at some point. It's just insane. It doesn't house you. It doesn't feed you. It's a $5 toy. But people decided that it had this value. And they thought that it would keep going up and up and up and up. And that is like the story of economic bubbles. And that is what, and this isn't like the first time this has happened. This happened with tulips in the 1600s in Netherlands. There was a tulip mania. People were like selling houses for tulips. In 2022, NFTs. I mean, this is the Beanie Babies is part of like a greater story of like capitalism and pursuit of riches and trying and that has sent me that like put me on a journey to try to figure that out and study that. And I work at the Yale economics department now, and I was talking to someone about this, and I asked a guy who's like an expert on the prices of things. I don't know. Like I was like, why would Beanie Babies be worth this much? Like, what do you know? And he was like, well, it's what people are willing to pay for them. I was like, okay. I was like, but why? Like, why? And he was like, well, it's actually like with fads and things like that, there's like some like bit of inexplicability with it. And it like, I couldn't get an answer out of him. And so I'm like mostly here to tell you that this whole search has been meaningless. Which sucks. But no, I have learned a few things. And yeah, I don't know. I think like I think of this story as a little bit of of a warning. Well, not a warning. I think first I'll say is that this journey has come, and I think like thinking about the story a bit too, has put this in perspective and thinking like I've been on this whole journey to like find the value of things, but at the expense of things that I really value. And like now I'm pursuing a different career. I'm trying to get into creative writing and poetry and comedy. And have been doing, and am trying to, which are passions that arguably aren't valued by the global market in a lot of places, that people don't pay $900,000 for, but do, as we know, in a room full of people at a storytelling show, do value. And so I hope this story is possibly a little bit of a warning for all of you to watch out for the next craze. In case you do get, because it is easy to get swept up in these things. And I don't want you all to go bankrupt. I don't want you all to go to jail like SBF did recently, or end up working at an economics department. But I think if you do catch on to the right craze, you might end up with a really solid dog toy. So that is my advice. Thank you all.
That was Luke. If you'd like to learn more about him, visit our website, storyclatter.org. Our website is just one way to connect with Storyclatter, but there's so many other ways, and we hope you'll use them all. You can always follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. Head to storyclatter.org to become a financial supporter, or if you want to come to one of our shows, start your own Storyclatter show in your community, or even learn how to tell your own science story, you can learn all about that on our website too. This podcast is produced by me, Misha Gajewski, along with Jen Chen, Nikisha Roberts-Washington, and Aaron Barker, Executive Director and co-founder of The Storyclatter. The stories featured in today's episode were produced by Christine Williams, Grant Bowen, and Aaron Barker. Special thanks goes out to Storyclatter's board and team. Our theme music is by Ghost, and next week, I'll be back with stories about moving on and letting go of relationships. They're beautiful stories about what it means to let go and heal. Until next time, thanks so much for listening.